Un saludo a todos los pinches mojados. It's your homeboy Quetzalcoatl. Welcome back to the Fuck Your Life Boxing Show. We got an action-packed fight coming up this Saturday. This fight is taking place at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California. It's about 15 minutes from where I live. I'm out here in Compton. It's going to be a fight between Josesito Lopez and Marcos Maidana. Marcos Maidana is 29 years old. He's coming off of a victory versus Angel Martinez in his native land of Argentina. That was a third round KO. Previous to that fight, Marcos Maidana was a participant in the Fight of the Year candidate versus Josesito Lopez in what proved to be a battle of wills. Prior to that fight, Marcos Maidana had recently started working with Robert Garcia, and the new changes in his style actually proved to be the difference in that fight versus Soto Caras. You saw that Marcos Maidana began relying heavily on his jab, and that was something that you had never seen from him previously. You also saw that Marcos Maidana surprisingly began exhibiting a lot of head movement in that fight and had shown a significant improvement in his defense. And he outboxed Josesito Lopez for the majority of that fight, and that proved to be the difference. He holds a record of 33 victories with 3 losses, and 30 of those victories come by way of KO, and that indicates that he's a huge puncher. When he was fighting at 140 pounds, that was the case. At 147, the fights that he's had versus top caliber opponents in Devin Alexander and Josesito Lopez, you've seen that power hasn't transferred quite as much in the 147-pound division. If the knockouts are going to come from Marcos Maidana, it's going to be more of an accumulation of damage that he's going to be doing rather than a one-punch knockout. Although he still has solid power at 147, Marcos Maidana has a very solid chin. He doesn't have a granite chin like his compatriot Lucas Matisse does, but as you've seen, he's been hurt versus Victor Ortiz. He's been hurt versus Soto Caras. He got dropped with a body shot versus Khan. So his chin isn't granite, but it's very solid. What Marcos Maidana does have is that he has excellent recuperative abilities. He recuperates very well. As you saw in those fights that I just mentioned, when he got dropped versus Ortiz, he ended up coming back and he knocked Ortiz out. He made him quit. Same thing with Soto Caras. He got hurt in that fight a couple of times, and he was able to weather the storm, came back and knocked Soto Caras out. In the fight versus Khan, he was dropped in the first round with a body shot, hurt bad. Although he wasn't able to win, he was able to come back, and he made that fight very competitive. He gave Khan everything he could handle. So he recuperates very well. You know, this motherfucker, he got some Wolverine in his ass. He can go all 12 rounds. He's got some solid stamina, although his activity tends to differ depending on the pace of the fight. As you've seen, an example is with Devin Alexander. In that fight, his activity dropped significantly in the later rounds, and that's basically because he was getting his ass whooped. That was a very bad loss for Marcos Maidana in a fight where he was never really in. He was never really in that fight. Was not competitive at all. It was a great victory for Devin Alexander, but he put on a clinic versus Marcos Maidana. But you've also seen Marcos Maidana going 12 rounds versus Amir Khan, where in the later rounds his activity picked up very significantly. He had Khan hurt very bad. So his activity in the later rounds basically all depends on the pace of the fight and whatever his mental state is, however he feels that he's doing in the fight. Josesito Lopez, on the other hand, this is his first fight coming back from the ass whooping that Canelo gave him. That was just a mismatch. That was a fight that never should have took place. Josesito Lopez took a lot of punches, a lot of punishment in that fight. You could see when he was getting dropped, he got dropped on several occasions in that fight. You saw the pain in his face and shit. I thought the motherfucker was gonna start crying. And I mean, he never really hurt Canelo. He maybe landed a couple shots on him, but Canelo ended up taking him out early. And Josesito Lopez is a natural 140-pound fighter. You know, he had moved up in weight to fight Victor Ortiz because Berto had failed the drug test and they had to get a fill-in. And this was basically a fight that everybody had Ortiz winning. Nobody thought Josesito Lopez was gonna win, and Josesito Lopez put on a miracle, you know, like some movie type shit. And it was a great fight, and he had his Rocky moment, you know. Josesito Lopez was they even said it on Showtime. He was a Mexican Rocky, fucking Ricardo Balboa, and he had gained a lot of notoriety and a lot of fame from coming back in that fight and breaking Ortiz's jaw and winning like that. And instead of carrying on with that fame and you know, generating more money and more fame, he ended up fighting Canelo in a fight that should have never took place. You know, Canelo's a 154-pound fighter, a natural 154-pound fighter, and you saw the size difference, and he just manhandled Josesito Lopez. Josesito Lopez could have fought at 140 pounds or 147, and could have been in great fights that even though even if he wouldn't have won those fights, he definitely would have been competitive in those fights. And now you have to wonder how that loss affected him physically. He's only 28 years old, but it was a bad loss. He holds a record of 30 victories and 5 losses, 18 of those victories coming by way of KO. He has a 2.5-inch height advantage over Marcos Maidana. He stands at 5 feet 9.5 inches. Although they both have a eagle reach at 69 inches. With Josesito Lopez, although as I mentioned that fight with Victor Ortiz was great, people also have to remember that he barely won that fight. And the reason why I was saying that, you have to wonder how Josesito Lopez is now physically is he not only took punishment in the fight versus Canelo, but he also took a lot of punishment in the fight versus Ortiz. Ortiz was winning that fight prior to getting his jaw broken. So, you know, you have to wonder what kind of toll that took on Josesito's body. If Josesito Lopez, though, still is in his physical prime, he's going to put on a hell of a performance versus Marcos Maidana. Although I have Marcos Maidana winning this fight, this is going to be the type of fight where both fighters are going to be going back and forth. Marcos Maidana, I have him edging out this fight because you haven't seen him lose in the way that Josesito has lost. Josesito has 5 losses. He's only been stopped once, but Marcos Maidana, he's able to recuperate a lot better than Josesito does. He has the better resume. I think that between both of them, he has a power advantage, and with the new style that he's exhibited, working with Robert Garcia, I think he also has the advantage in the technical boxing department, and that all those elements are going to prove a problem for Josesito Lopez. Although, you know, Josesito's going to give it everything he got. I'm going to be rooting for him, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, he's, you know, representing La Raza, but you got to keep it real, you know what I'm saying? You got to give Marcos Maidana his props and, you know, the credit for the things that he's done. And I think he's going to win this fight. Let me know what you think. Do you see Josesito Lopez winning this fight? If he does, shit, lightning is striking twice. Shit, if he pulls this out, that motherfucker needs to start playing the lottery. But, you know, let me know what you think. And as always, hit the like button, subscribe button. This is your homeboy Quetzalcoatl. Sign the fuck on out.